Welcome to Kink Geek with your hosts, Step and Tams.
We're here to take a nerd's eye view of everything from sexuality to pop culture and whatever we hit along the way.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a real good time.
Hello, lovely listeners out there in Listenerland.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back to Kink Geek. We're glad to be back for a second week in a row.
Yay! Look at us.
Yep. It's that time again, so strap on your earphones.
And get ready to listen.
You're right there to pick up my slack.
I am. I'm trying.
Aww.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long month. Listen to our last episode and you'll find out why. But we are here, and we're going to start off with an update on our update from last week. So our apartment. We are super excited to be getting our new apartment.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We're just chomping at the bit now to get out of here.
Yes, it's true, it's true. We're in the process of downsizing and deciding what stays and what goes, and that's not as much fun as I'd like it to be, but...
I want to set up a dedicated recording space. I'm just so excited about having that.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be great. Mm-hmm. But 2 weeks and counting.
Yep. So what's been going on with you this week, Tams?
Not a whole lot. A lot of getting projects ready.
Revving them back up?
Yeah. In our Magic play, there's a new set about to drop.
Ixalan.
The pre-release is on Saturday, so we had to do our set review this week, which meant so much recording.
Yeah, it really kind of snuck up on us. We just realized Thursday that, the set is dropping tomorrow. I guess we have to record our set review this weekend.
Mm-hmm. So we've just spent the last 2 hours recording the last piece of the set review, right on schedule.
Yep. But that's why Kink Geek was a little late this week.
A little late time-wise,
It'll be out tonight anyway.
Yep,
so
that's true.
You're getting this fresh cut right from the the source.
If you download this as soon as it goes live, we will probably have been off the air for, about 20 minutes.
Our tea will still have been warm.
Yeah. So the other thing going on, what else was this week? We had our Magic League finals. We had a league. And
was that this week?
Yeah, this past week.
Oh, wow. Yep.
It was on Tuesday, yeah. And you, myself, and our other Magic friend, Laura, were all top 8.
Yeah, you can check out details on that in our other podcast, The Knowledge Pool, which we do every week with Laura.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And there were some really interesting final game things that if you're at all interested in Magic, you'll be interested to hear about. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. The other thing you and I have been brainstorming about this week, and I've been actively working on, is our channels, our video game channels.
What do you mean channels?
YouTube, baby, YouTubes.
But what do you mean plural?
Well, I heard a rumor that somebody else in this room that isn't me is considering the possibility of doing a YouTube channel too.
Well, I have been considering it, and my problem has always been that every time I try to do something new, I want positive feedback from people who don't already like me, so that I know that there's something, worthwhile in it. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to actually do something like a Let's Play channel, it's going to end up being for me, so I don't have to care about that sort of thing.
Yeah, because the thing is, unfortunately, with something like YouTube,
it's just saturated.
It could take 6 years for people to start actually watching it.
Well, but if I'm actually going to do it, I'm not going to care about that.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I have a handful of people who watch my stuff religiously, which is the super coolest feeling. Even just having 2 people that I did not know before I started YouTubing, that they come and watch and comment is the best feeling. And beyond that, I'm doing it for me. So
cool.
And we're looking at possibly some cross-channel shenanigans. But for me, I have been... I actually got a video up this week, so I'll talk about that in a moment in the things we're geeking out about part. So,
well, why not start off with that?
You wanna slide?
Yeah.
Right into there? Okay, so I started a new YouTube series for me, and it's a World of Warcraft series. I am a big fan of playing it. And I really wanted something to do that was going to be fun for me. So it's not a, here's how you be the best. It's not a, hey, I'm going to break all of these records. It's basically just a, hey, come hang out with me. We're going to level this character together. But the only little kind of stipulation that I put in that is that's hilarious, actually, is that I'm playing on a PvP server. Mm-hmm. I'm not a PvP player. I don't mind the odd battleground, but I am such a non-fan of being ganked or ganking other people. So it's gonna lead to absolute hilarity as I learn how to deal with people ganking me, and subsequently how to play better in a PvP environment where you're reacting to another live person instead of a computer programmed AI that only does so many things. Like, I know when I'm attacking this mob, it's going to cast this spell first probably, and once I've countered it, it won't cast it again for a while.
Okay.
But playing against another player, you never know the level of their skill or what their talent tree is or anything else, so it makes it a lot more difficult.
So I have a couple of questions for you about that.
Sure.
First, you're not a fan of PvP, which I know, because of those elements that you've just discussed.
Yep.
How do you fit that with your love of Magic the Gathering and the fact that part of that whole one-on-one thing is reading your opponent and guessing what they're going to be doing?
Oh, I don't mind that part of it. And I don't mind playing one-on-one and a person comes out on top. What I do not like is the ganking aspect of PvP. And for those who don't speak gamer lingo, what that means is an under-leveled, under-geared character that is attacked repeatedly by another player and killed. And it basically just stops the player who's being killed from being able to do anything in the game. And I find that frustrating, and I find it bad play, but it's rampant. But if it were a fair one-on-one, that's why I like Battlegrounds, because you go in, both sides are going after whatever the objective is, and you know that if you see somebody on the other team, the goal is to take them down. So I like that kind of thing. Okay,
so my next question is, you've mentioned the word Battlegrounds a couple of times, so I have a sort of leading question. If there were some anonymous fan out there who bought you a copy of Players Unknown Battlegrounds, would you enjoy that kind of game? Or
Yes, I really, really want to play it so bad, but it is a little pricey for me right now. But if that were
we'll work on that.
If it were a Christmas gift or something, I would absolutely play it. I would love to play it for the channel. I think it would be hilarious too. So
it's exactly the kind of game that I don't like, so you have fun with that.
Yeah. So I've started my character. I've put out the first episode. For the most part, it's just going to be fun, casual kind of stuff. I'm hoping to upload this particular series a few times a week. And you come join me in my little hunter. And
do you want to talk about what else you have going on there, or do you want to leave that for another time?
I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of random things.
Okay.
As well as I want to focus on some scary games.
Okay.
And I really want to make sure to get back to Creativerse and Minecraft as well.
Okay.
So that's the big stuff.
If I were to start up a channel, it would probably just be randomly playing whatever I want to do as the mood arose. But,
that sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah. On the topic of channels and series, though, I do want to mention that something we've been watching this week as we've been packing was Iron Fist.
Yes.
We actually finished up, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, and decided, we'll give this Danny McFisty guy a shot. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, I heard terrible, terrible things about it. Now, it has its issues, and I do completely can understand the one point that was made was that, well, first of all, it's once again not casting an Asian actor in a role that should be an Asian actor, which, from what I understand, the character was Caucasian in the comic book.
Yeah,
that was,
he was.
Kind of the point of it was somebody taken out of his own culture and put into a culture he's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and then put back
thrust back into his own.
What should be his own culture, but
Yeah.
isn't. It's like a Tarzan story.
Yeah, which so I mean I can understand the knee-jerk reaction of it. I also completely understand and can see after watching it an issue that some people had was that in certain scenes you have Danny, the main character, as one Asian American fellow said, Asian-splaining things to other Asians in the show, and it just did not come across very well. It's like we don't mind the idea of somebody who grew up in the culture doing this, but it just wasn't done very well.
That's a deep rabbit hole to explore. But what I kind of... the reason I didn't want to watch it was that I've never really been interested in Iron Fist. I always saw him as a kung fu Batman. And one Batman is enough. And then seeing the image that's on Netflix of him looking serious in a suit with the fist all glowy and moody, I was like, eh.
We just watched 3 moody,
well, yeah, and
dark.
That's the thing. Like, I enjoyed Daredevil so much less than I expected, because I love Daredevil, but I don't remember him being that much of a
Batman
moody twit.
Yeah.
But watching Iron Fist was so refreshing compared, because the character, for the most part, is a lot lighter. He knows how to, again, for the most part, let things go. And there were lighter angles on the other characters in it. So if you're interested in a 13-episode run, I actually enjoyed that one quite a bit.
I enjoyed his naivete.
Yeah.
And what I liked was it was kind of a reversal of what you normally see. It was like a deconstruction. He came in as this very trusting, non-jaded, very, emotionally centered kind of character. And through the course of the 13 episodes was broken down as he had to reintegrate into his own culture and his lost life.
Yeah.
And I found it kind of interesting. And
I was surprised by some of the other characters, too, and where their paths went.
The one character that I called, Mr. Weaselface, and I wanted to punch him repeatedly. By the end, I was like, I like you. They really did good things with your character.
And that's refreshing, too. Yeah.
So I found it definitely worth my time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll be going on to the Defenders, when we have time.
Yeah.
So,
and the last thing that I want to geek out about, and these people don't know me, I don't know them, I've only seen their products, but...
You've been ogling their products for a while.
Oh my gosh, and I want to share it because we've had a lot of people ask about collars. Where can I get collars? And the other thing that I hear a lot is, I love either pet play or their furries, or just... I really like cat ears or cat tails or fox tails. Where can you find them? I found this phenomenal place. It's called the Kitten's Playpen. It's run by 2 sisters. I'm linking it in their Facebook page and their actual website.
In the show notes?
In the show notes. So they have
these... should probably tweet at them too or something.
Let them know, yeah. They have these beautiful collars and chokers that run from $11 to $40. Which is completely reasonable.
Now, we haven't tested them. We can't give them the guarantee. We haven't bought their stuff yet, but we intend to be. And when we do, we'll give a little actual review. But
absolutely.
From what we've seen, their stuff is adorable.
And I've never seen anything posted on... I've been following them for well over a year. I've never seen anything negative on their website at all from customers.
That's good.
But they have tails. They have realistic faux animal fur, like fox or, that kind of thing. They also have colored stuff, like candy floss pink and dark purple. They have the ears. Oh my gosh, the ears are so cute. They have like actual fluffy furry like ears. They also carry add-ons for the tails and the collars. They have novelties such as they actually have some sex toys. They have lube, restraints, paddles. They also have clothing. The cutest thing though that I found is something called kitten mittens and the little cat paws.
Yeah, they're the I can't remember the term, but they're popular in like J-pop kind of.
I want them so bad. I keep entering their contests because I want to win something. They're so cute. So anyways, you guys should go over and check them out if you are looking for collars.
Yeah, give them some traffic at least.
Because it's beautiful and it's so nice to see, smaller businesses.
Yeah,
that seem to have a really good representation of our community, which I also really, really liked. So you should check them out. So we're going to move on to
our main topic. And our main topic is a number of things. We have seen and received a bunch of just random questions or things that we want to discuss in a little bit of detail. So we're going to go through this list and get as far as we can in the time allotted. Who knows how far that'll be. This might be another episode in the future. We'll find out.
So this is questions part 2, because we did another one of these a while ago.
Yep.
So we're just going to start at the top. I'll read the question, the first one, and we haven't really talked to each other about the answers. We're just going to...
This could be interesting.
I want some real reaction here.
Real discussion? All right.
All right, so here's the first one. A Dom is supposed to guide, protect, and be there for their sub. If a sub decides not to tell their Doms when something is wrong, or that they need something because they don't want to disturb their dominant, or, they think they don't have to tell them that, how will they know? Doms are not psychic, contrary to what some people may think. If you do this, is it topping from the bottom? Are you taking the choice out of your Dom's hands?
My answer to this is yes. This is a, not to put too harsh tip on it, but a betrayal of the communication code. If you don't bring something up because you don't want to bother your partner, this isn't even a Dom sub thing, but your partner in a relationship with something so trivial, then you need to ask yourself if it's really trivial or if it's been bothering you for all day or a week or a month. And if something goes that long without being at least openly discussed, then there's a problem with trust in that relationship. And that goes just as much for dominant submissive relationships as for vanilla relationships.
Do you think it's the same way the other way around?
That's interesting.
Because we've had conversations where I've said, just something simple about a financial thing or something. And you said, well, I want to protect you from it. I don't want you to have to stress about it. So is that a function of the dominant kind of judging what a submissive should have to?
I'd say that depends on the dynamic and on the partners involved. But more often, I think we shield... when we're hiding this information, it's more to shield ourselves, from reprisal, more than to shield our loved ones from stress or anxiety. And if we're really being honest with ourselves, it's the kind of thing that you should be talking to them about. Now, not all BDSM relationships are coupley relationships.
That is true.
So, for some people, this isn't even going to apply that way. But for the submissive to be keeping things that are troubling them from the dominant, I think in a non-romantic relationship is probably wrong. In a non-romantic relationship, the dom keeping things from the sub, well, that's probably their prerogative. But once you cross that barrier into 24/7 life, there are places at which you need those barriers to come down, and you need to discuss things as human partners.
I totally agree. This is something that I have struggled with myself and have been reprimanded for on numerous occasions, because I don't like to... I think that I'm tough and I can take care of a lot of things on my own, and I really don't like upsetting people when I don't have to, So my thinking is, it'll pass. It's something I can deal with. You don't need to be bothered with it. You've got enough stuff sitting on your plate as it is. And so it's really hard to remember sometimes that this is not giving you the opportunity,
And I can tell you that firsthand, that kind of response makes it more difficult for me to open up about things that might be bothering me. because I think, well, if she's going through so much anxiety over the things that she doesn't want to tell me about, then how can I burden her further?
Yeah, and it's a kind of a loop. So I think this was a really good question, something most people need to think about.
Yeah, it's not something that a lot of people do really open up about, and it's important. I think this is one of the easiest ways for communication to break down.
Yeah, and the side effect of this sometimes that I've had happen in the past, less so in the last while, but it has happened, it's that ridiculous thing where I don't consciously ever think, well, if you loved me, you would know. I think that's a ridiculous statement. It's a ridiculous thought. But I remove the opportunities for you to be a dominant for me, to do that protective or helping me get through thing. And it can lead to resentment because you think, okay, well, I'm always doing all of the heavy lifting and you're not doing it. Well, how can you if you don't know? So I definitely think if this is something that's going on, you should definitely stop at least and do some thinking. I'm speaking from experience.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
So
next question.
Let's move on to the next question.
Should subs be allowed to question their DOMs? Is there a difference between questioning and a question? I don't understand the context.
So is there a difference between questioning you, like me thinking...
challenging my authority and asking a question?
Are you even doing this right? Blah, blah, blah. Or me saying, I have a question about this thing. And yes, there's definitely a question. There's definitely a difference there. I mean, that's pretty...
It's... In some ways, it's a matter of degrees, and in some ways, it's a matter of material. So... this, I think, was a question that came from a forum where there was a great deal of conversation about it, but it's one that we wanted to tackle because it's, again, one that we've had some experience with.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's all that uncommon for especially an initiate Dom, someone who doesn't have a lot of experience and who might be a little self-conscious or uncertain to think, well, if the sub is allowed to question me, then that means they don't respect me.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself causes a lot of problems. So for my personal style, I don't think being the unquestioning authority or unquestionable authority is very useful at all. I think it only serves to distance the sub from the Dom. To be confident enough in your own authority and comfortable enough with being questioned only serves to demonstrate that authority, to bolster that authority. Confidence, comfort in being challenged are things that show you really have confidence in yourself. So from that angle, I think the whole question of how can a sub dare to do these things, that's the wrong tone to take. But is there a question, or is there a difference between asking a question and challenging the way things should be done? Well, yes, there is a difference. The difference is that sometimes when you're not clear as a dominant, and you can't be clear all the time, you're human. Communication is a never-ending journey of discovery. Sometimes people have different opinions of what a word means, and that can cause all sorts of problems. So asking a question in those times to clarify what the Dom wants is only the sub's way of asking how to serve better. Do you have anything to say on that topic?
Yeah, I'll go to the questioning part. Okay. I can understand sometimes that feeling of this just doesn't feel like it's going right. Like, I really don't know that this person is doing the right thing. And I think my best advice for that is to think it through and listen to your guts. If it's something that is constantly going on that just doesn't feel right, that's where you need to sit down and request a out of dynamic conversation. Because sometimes maybe it isn't the right thing. Maybe there is something going on. As you said, people are human. Or maybe this person just isn't the right fit for what you are looking for, or the right guidance that you are looking for. But the other side of the coin is, are you open to being, having a dominant, or having them make these kinds of decisions or saying these kinds of things? Is the trust there? Again, it might mean having conversations and looking at where you both sit.
This is also a place where outside voices can be really helpful. Finding a third opinion. Someone who is impartial and what they think about what's going on. And that's part of how we always have this need to defend BDSM against people who are on the outside looking in. This is part of how it differs wildly from abusive relationships, because in a healthy BDSM relationship, communication should be open, and sometimes that means allowing another voice in. A submissive should never feel like they can't go and talk to someone about whatever they need to talk about. Now, they might have trouble finding that someone to lend a voice, but that should never come from the dom cutting off the submissive.
That's a warning sign.
That's definitely a warning sign.
And if this is a romantic relationship that you're in, especially if it's a live-in kind of thing, we've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. There are people out there, professional therapists, who are kink friendly, who are BDSM friendly. There are even some that are they specialize in this sort of thing. That's where Google is your friend.
Yeah, because it can be difficult finding one. I know I've talked to therapists before who really didn't have any sort of context for what my relationship life was like, and that's not helpful. So it's important to find someone who is, if not sympathetic, at least aware of the fact that not everything is monogamous TV marriages.
And I think you're going to find from now and as we move forward through the years, this is changing, because it's becoming more in the mainstream. So you're having more people aware, more people in the lifestyle, to be honest. So, all right. So let's move on to the next one. This one's an interesting one. So there is a woman who has been in the lifestyle for a while. She introduces BDSM to her husband. The wife considers herself a dominant / mommy type, and she feels that her husband presents as a brat / child. And when talking to her husband, after, kind of getting into some things, he says no, he's a dominant and she should submit to him. So the question the wife asked was, how does she make him see he isn't what he says he is? So that was the question as it was kind of posed. I've paraphrased and kind of condensed it, but that's the general gist of it.
So that sounds to me, in my inexpert opinion, like a relationship that is headed for some real turmoil. Because you cannot make someone into what you want them to be. You need to be able to come to the table with another human being and discuss what everyone wants, not just what one person wants. So in that relationship, if both partners are saying, I'm the dominant and you need to submit to me, then, in my opinion, neither of those people are presenting as a good dominant. They're taking the bad, potentially abusive track of trying to crush someone else's will.
Yeah, and I think also the thing that is problematic for me is when somebody says, I see them as this, and they say they aren't. How do I make them realize that that's what they actually are?
See, that's a tough spot, too, because I hear where that's coming from, and I've been in that position of understanding something that a person hasn't recognized in themselves yet. Mm-hmm. In your case, it was the fact that you never thought you had any dominant bone in you.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, I can see in the future you'll want to explore that. Uh-huh. You just weren't open to it yet.
Yeah.
But there's a great difference between seeing that and recognizing it and deciding that you want to put someone into a... slap a label on someone.
Mm-hmm. And I honestly don't trust necessarily that everyone is as intuitive, maybe, as you are. There is the thing that, you know, sometimes you just see in somebody what you want to see in them. Mm. Because they behave a certain way, you think it's coming from this, whereas maybe it's just coming from another perspective. Maybe he's acting like a bratty child, but it's not because he wants to be that role in a relationship, but because he is being crushed at work. And that's kind of a reactionary kind of thing. You can't know.
There's also a bias in play here where you'd expect the parent in the relationship to necessarily be the dominant figure. And as many little communities will tell you, that's mm-hmm. not necessarily the case. Sometimes the little is the dominant. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not comfortable putting that on this situation because I don't know enough, but there's a possibility of saying that the mommy or daddy in a little big relationship could be the submissive, mm-hmm. and the bratty one could be the dominant.
Mm-hmm. I think the bottom line for me is you cannot make him see. The best thing for people to be doing in this kind of thing is they need to discover things on their own, what they want separately. Mm-hmm. And they need to communicate a lot more and a lot more openly.
Yeah.
Because
without agendas.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing to come to the table knowing what your agenda is, but not trying to push it. Mm-hmm. Because that's part of what negotiation is.
If you had come to me and fought with me about, no, you definitely have dominance in you. You need to recognize that, and you need to act on that. I would have shut down and walked away.
Yeah.
Because you just, that's not how communication and relationships work.
Person's psyche is a non-Newtonian fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Okay, so moving on to the next one. And this one kind of ties into the first one a tiny bit. A sub keeps being punished for transgressions and needs to ask her dom for more boundaries so she is less likely to cross those lines. Cross the lines of the things that he doesn't want her doing and receive less corrections. How does she do that?
I'm noticing a theme here. Are you noticing a theme?
Lack of communication?
Lack of communication and proper consent in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. The problem here is improper negotiations before going into the relationship. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the relationship needs to be reevaluated, and in those cases, in extreme cases, you may need to break out of the BDSM roles in order to negotiate that relationship. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult in a 24/7 dynamic especially, but even more important in those cases. Mm-hmm. Now, to take a little bit looser tactic, because that, like I said, is the extreme, there are ways to ask what the dominant wants, and it goes into that questioning thing. It's not questioning a person's authority to ask them questions and actively display your interest in how their mind works.
For me, if I'm constantly getting punishments for things that I wasn't aware were issues, that's a problem for me. That doesn't happen because you're very clear about what's going on. So she absolutely needs to sit down and say, okay, we need to draw up your rules. Like, what are your rules for me? What can I do? What can't I do? And maybe have some sort of thing, if it's not on the list and I do it and you don't like it, well, it's not a punishment because I didn't know I couldn't do that or I wasn't supposed to. That's where we take the pen and we add that to the list.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the difference, again, between BDSM and abuse is understanding the context for things. In an uncertain relationship where you're never sure whether what you're doing is right or wrong, or whether you're going to be punished or beaten for something that you might not recognize as wrong, that is a step toward an unhealthy, abusive relationship and away from consensual BDSM.
I agree. All right, so moving on. Do you want to cover this one?
We tend to use the words or the terms always and never while having communications. Do you shut down when you hear them? How are these phrases helpful? And what is better? It's funny because...
Unhelpful, but yeah.
Sorry?
Unhelpful.
How are these phrases unhelpful? This sort of ties in very nicely with what we were talking about completely separately last week about labels and how calling someone a true dom or a true sub or not a true dom or not a dom is not as helpful as calling them a bad dom or saying that they have work to do, a lot of learning and growing to do. Those things are more helpful, putting them in the context that they want to be viewed in and saying, you need to just up your game or get on the level, using the terms always and never. You're going to say something?
No, you keep going. I'll keep it.
You always do this. Well, in psychology and in human communication, when you use a term like always, as soon as someone can point out one example of how they haven't always done that, that's what the conversation's about. That's what the argument turns into. I don't always do that. There was this time at this specific point that I didn't do that. And what's really the focus of the discussion is, at that point, lost.
Yeah, and the thing with always and never are they're such absolute words. They're explosive phrases that seem more geared towards getting a reaction than having a conversation.
Only the Sith speak in absolutes.
That's right. Remember that, folks. Yes, we're giant nerds.
But it's true to say that something is always right or wrong or never... It's just not helpful in the way that saying this specific thing happened and I'm unhappy about it. Can we discuss this specific thing? Last Tuesday, you didn't change the toilet paper roll and I was out and I couldn't get to the closet to get more. Do you see how that's a problem?
Yeah.
Rather than you never change it, I always change it. How is that fair? That's not a good way to frame a conversation.
No, it's definitely not. So, yeah, I think it's definitely unhelpful. So, all right. Moving on. In negotiations, what do you do when something is not agreed upon? Does the sub always need to agree? Do doms always need to agree?
All right, this is a really good question. I say it's really good because I've been in the position before numerous times of doing something in a scene that was not pre-negotiated ahead of time. How can I do that, you ask? Well, sometimes you get carried away. Sometimes you get a soul read and see that someone really wants something that you didn't talk about before. Sometimes they ask in the middle of the scene, do this, and you have to decide, do they actually want this, or is it a heat of the moment thing where consent isn't really being applied? And in my experience, it all comes down to how much trust and how strong a relationship you have with the people involved. There are times when we have done things spur of the moment that in other contexts probably wouldn't be okay. But because of our bond or the fact that we were both really excited, it turned out fine.
Yep.
And there are other times when things that would normally be okay turn out wrong because of the mindset involved.
And that's why we have safe words. That's why it's so important to have safe words.
Yes.
And what's the most fascinating about this question is that I did not view this question in the way that you did.
Oh?
You viewed it as negotiations in a play scene. I viewed it as negotiations between a dom and a sub setting up a relationship.
Okay.
So now we can talk about that too. So that's really cool. What do you think? When we sit down to negotiate our relationship, do I have to agree with everything? Like, is there a time where I can say, no, that's just not something I am cool with?
That's the point of negotiations.
That's exactly how I feel. And I think it goes, I don't think it goes, it absolutely, it goes both ways. Because at the end of the day, you are people. Now, there are going to be some people who say, yes, but I'm a slave, so I shouldn't have any input. And if that's how you are doing your relationship, that's how you're doing your relationship.
If that's how you want to live and what you're consenting to,
then you're consenting to it.
That's different from saying, because I have this label, this is what I understand I need to do.
Yeah.
That's probably the wrong way to frame it.
Yeah. If it's something that fuels you, that this is what works for you, that you really like, then that's awesome. And that's what you want. But you should never say, because I am a slave, I have absolutely no rights, I can't say anything, if that's not what you want.
The truth is, the confines of BDSM should be liberating, not enslaving.
Yep, and the thing is, everybody's different. Yep. And that's what makes this wonderful and difficult at the same time. Because we can sit here and offer our advice on how we see things, but our relationship and our rules are going to be very different from pretty much everybody else. Because people are different, and there's no written in stone way to do things, which I think is what makes it as cool as it is, you know?
And you know what? I know that we've got a bunch more, but I think that is a good note to leave on, because you just made a really good point.
I did?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the core of what BDSM is. The fact that everyone's relationship is going to be different, and we just need to understand and respect the differences in others. But we still need to watch out for the things in our own lives and the lives of those around us that are challenging.
I agree. That was lovely.
So, thanks very much for listening, for spending this time with us tonight. You can find us here every week. And you can also check out our other projects, all of which are linked in our show notes. Also, if you have derived some value from this experience, you could think about supporting us via our Patreon. Your patronage is what helps keep us going and keeps us improving. We'd love to keep expanding our reach to a wider and wider audience, and through your support, we can do that. If you can't support us financially, you could always give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and consider sharing this show with your friends.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye. Doom, doom, da, doom, doom, da, doom, 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 doom. We need a new intro, but we're keeping that music because it's awesome.
You're ridiculous. Hey, everyone. Welcome.
Oh, I thought we were recording a stinger.
No.
Stinger!
I guess it's the stinger now.
Thank you for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Just a quick reminder that Kink Geek and everything we do is supported by you, our fantastic listeners, via our Patreon. Visit patreon.com and consider becoming a patron for access to all of our bonus content. See you next time.